I have everything from the Mario costume. The last piece shows up today.
Ah, all right.
Because speaking of which, I lost a hat somewhere in the house. I think Thea took it. Because I they had a baseball hat version, and I was like, I like that a lot more than the actual like squared off one. So I'm like, fuck it, dude. It's cheaper and honestly it fits my head better.
So doing a movie Luigi.
Luigi.
Aren't you Luigi?
No, Mario, fuck Luigi.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the show. We are your hosts, Colin Peters.
John Rochetta.
Wow, dude. I was expecting anything at this moment. The past two, I'm actually taken back right now, but
You
good
know,
job.
because you got me this shirt that says "Fight like a final girl." I'm
Hell yeah.
on you.
And I'm Jeff Manfred.
I finished the intros before we
Oh,
go into the
absolutely.
show.
I know half the time we end up just skipping over my name, but clearly you can see it on the screen right now.
You really can.
Yeah,
But it's
Forgive
more
my
fun.
appearance. The
yeah,
sun.
but it's good for visual, but it's an audio show too.
Absolutely.
The sun does
So
not agree with me, so that's why my appearance is what it is right now.
John, I do hate you.
Hey Jeff, I will kill you someday.
You've tried too many times.
I haven't tried enough.
Oh,
I'll send these guys
gosh.
after you.
They actually look pretty cool.
Yeah. My minions. I needed some help to construct my new estate at Collinsworth. I'm making my own Collinsworth. I actually have the first stone erected right now. Scale's a bit off, but we all have a jumping off point.
Oh gosh. Today we're going to be talking about 2012's movie Dark Shadows.
The funny thing is, I didn't realize it was that old. It wasn't until we
Yeah.
started discussing it, and then I'm sitting there I'm like, oh shit, it's over 10 years old. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we watched it first time, even in theaters, it was like I was kind of blown back about with it because hey, I didn't know what the fuck a Dark Shadows was, but I'm like, hey, Johnny Depp, Tim Burton, it's creepy as fuck. Plus, Ava Green and Helena Bonham Carter is always a
Mhm.
good jump off point too.
Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer came back too. It
I
was like a big comeback for her, and also like a return with her working with Tim Burton again.
Mm-hmm. We also
actually,
got Jackie Earle Haley, and Christopher Lee even comes back too.
from what I heard, actually, Michelle Pfeiffer called Tim Burton to get the part.
No, no shit.
It's actually the first time she asked for a role.
Huh.
I didn't hear that. I heard that this was actually something that Johnny Depp was like a huge fan of because Dark Shadows was originally a soap opera
Mhm.
back in the 60s, I think it started.
1966 was the first year it came out, and it lasted 5 years to 1971. And it's debatable how many episodes there were, but some people say it's 1,225 episodes, and some people say it's 1,230. It's a difference of five. But
Yeah, it was confusing to me because when I told people about this, because I was like, you know, I wasn't really like super excited, but I was just like, well, I'm a huge Tim Burton fan and I also like Johnny Depp. And then those two together always to me was a good combo, even though they had some misses. But I was still like, okay, there's this movie called Dark Shadows, and apparently Johnny Depp was a fan of the show, and it was like a dream role for him to play this Barnabas Collins vampire. And
really,
him and Tim Burton were talking about that they wanted to make a vampire movie, and this was the pitch. And when I was telling my parents or family about it, they would said like, oh, that was a pretty cool show back in the day. And I was like, you watch this show? like I knew nothing of it really. I think maybe I've seen the DVD covers where it was the castle and Barnabas Collins's eyes.
Mhm.
Like it was pretty distinctive, but that's all I really knew of it. I didn't even watch the show in preparation for the movie.
I never heard of the show at all until the movie was announced in 2012. Like Jeff just said, I'm like, this was a soap opera. This was a thing back then. And my other friend Jeff was like, "Oh, you never saw it? Oh, it was big. Still big. There was a revival too, but that can be talked about later. But yeah, the whole show started by Dan Curtis. He was the creator. And I know after the soap opera ended, the network kept pestering him about a revival until he finally gave in and said, fine, we'll do one. So they got like a new cast. We talked a little bit about our favorite Scream Queen. Barbara Steele comes back in this one. She plays the doctor role that Helen Bonham Carter plays in the movie. And it only lasted 12 episodes, so one season. I heard it was a good, faithful revival, even though there was some protest by a lot of people saying, no, you're going to tarnish this. Please don't do this, Dan. Please don't. And there's two sides of it. There's one, it was not renewed for a second season, even though it was being written because of the protests. And also, this was 91. So it was in the heart of the Gulf War. So there was a lot of television coverage of that going on. So it took away from it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know
like
that Barnabas isn't even in the first season. He doesn't show up till the second season.
Exactly.
and what's screwed up is I think they actually like reference him, and the actor Jonathan Freed is actually like in portraits and stuff in the first season. So
I think
he's there.
I guess I would like explain like let's say the first act of the movie, like explains his story where he's at, but he's initially not there until almost the second act in the movie. So that it would be a good play on Tim Burton and Johnny Depp to go that route as well.
Mm-hmm.
They went right in with it though, with like the Barnabas Collins story. I mean, this movie's pretty much about how you see Barnabas Collins as a kid, and right away it's like family themed. You know, he talks about how like his family moves from, is it England?
Liverpool to
Okay.
Liverpool in England to Maine.
To Maine, and then they start a fishing business and they become very successful. And his dad says to young Barnabas that family is like the greatest wealth that anybody can ever have. And as far as we know, it's not like he has any siblings or cousins. It's just pretty much him, his mom and dad, and a dog. Like they have some servants that help out around the house, and one turns out to be Eva Green, who is Angelique, who winds up being a witch. And as Barnabas gets older, they seem to have an affair. He rejects her, and she puts a spell or curse on the family and Barnabas, and says that if I can't have him, then he can't have anybody. And he finds his love of his life. What was her name? Josephine?
Was it Josette?
Josette. Yeah, thank you. And she winds up killing herself by jumping off a cliff into the water.
Yes.
And then he tries to do it himself, because if he can't have her, he's gonna die. But then as he jumps off and falls, he winds up turning into a vampire.
Whoops, he had an affair with a witch.
I was like, because the witch cursed him to be a vampire, and he doesn't realize it that this happens until he essentially kills himself.
Right.
So it's like, I guess that was his jumping off point, was he had to die to become immortal.
It was his what?
His jumping off point.
So he becomes a vampire, and I guess some time goes by because the townsfolk get familiar with him. But all we know is that Angelique rats him out to the people, and then they decide to lock him in a casket and bury him. And he's basically buried for almost 200 years, 196 to be exact, for an Angelique. And then he gets arisen by like a construction crew, and he goes to see his family, and here he finds out that the family, the Collins family, is basically deteriorated. The mansion that they have is falling apart. The business isn't anywhere near what it used to be. And he decides that he's going to be this like family figure and try to bring everything back together and unify everybody and everything.
he's gonna get with the times. He's gonna adjust to the 1970s.
Yeah, and for something that was supposed to be like really dark and scary, from what I understand, there is a lot of comedic moments in this movie. Like
Nope.
I was surprised to see the trailer after hearing what I heard, where there was like so much comedic stuff and like funny moments. Apparently, Tim Burton didn't like the trailer because it gave too much of a comedy vibe.
That's
But
what I got too from the marketing campaign.
I saw the comedy instantly, and I was like, well, okay, that looks like there's some levity. Like I don't know why they went this route exactly, and I was looking for a reason why. I didn't really see anything. There's really
Yeah.
not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to like doing research on Dark Shadows, other than like what Jeff said, like Michelle Pfeiffer reached out because she wanted to be in it, or that Johnny Depp was, into this as a dream role and this is what they wanted to do.
Mhm.
Most of the time, if you look up stuff on this movie, it's just people that basically bash the movie. They're like, when this movie first came out, it wasn't really well received. It didn't seem like fans really enjoyed it either. But
It got
I know
mixed
Jeff,
reviews.
yeah, but I know that like Jeff and I, we saw it and we're like, it wasn't great, but we didn't leave the theater hating the film.
I think I actually more enjoyed it now than I did then too. Because like as much as I was like it wasn't a fantastic movie, it was still a fun watch. Rewatching it this past week, I started realizing like there was more to it that we missed at the time. Because like you said, there's that very not even subtle, the very blatant like family oriented concept with it. It's the first time I would think that it's based in a horror universe too, where the vampire's the head of the household and he's showing that like we can all come together and be a family no matter what we are. And he started taking care of everybody, and he wanted to help Michelle Pfeiffer be that figurehead too. And that was a nice touch there. The what I did forget was the horror aspect of the movie. I forgot that Johnny Depp murders like what 30 people within that.
Straight up
Quite a
too. I
Yeah,
bit.
mean, like it's subtle yet it's in your face. Like it was actually like really well done how they did it. But like as soon as he comes out of the casket after the 196 years, he straight up kills everybody who was on that construction site. He even says, "I'm sorry about this," but he's a vampire, so
But
he's
he's
got to do what he
starving. He
has to
hasn't
do.
had a drink in what, 196 years. So
Yeah.
he's parched. Give him some blood.
and
So yeah, and it's like, damn, and you see blood on his face and on his hands, and it's like, oh damn.
Did the trailers just lie to me? I thought this was a straight up comedy. No, this is dark as all hell. Hence the title, Dark
It had
Shadows.
some horror moments too, man. It
I
was
do love why the construction crew was there to begin the construction for Mephistopheles, also known
yeah,
as McDonald's.
that was a nice touch.
That really got a good laugh
how
out of
the
me.
yeah, like when Johnny Depp's Barnabas Collins' parents died, he becomes like interested in the occult because he feels like it's almost like how when somebody says, "I want to know my enemy," is basically what he was doing. And then
Mhm.
another name for Satan, I believe, is Mephistopheles, and in this occult book,
Mephistopheles.
the M is excuse me, designed like the McDonald's M. And then as soon as he comes out and kills all the people from his grave, he sees the McDonald's M, and right away he's like, Mephistopheles.
Every time he sees a light, he just thinks it's Satan trying to bring him back to the depths of hell, but it's just a guy driving a car down a deserted road saying, "Get the hell out of the way, asshole."
Oh, it's that like typical fish out of water
Yeah.
syndrome, like I
Mhm.
think one of our favorite parts of it is when Alice Cooper comes to the house for a
That's
ball
my
gala, and he keeps on referring to him as the Cooper woman because he's like, the name's Alice. What
well,
kind of man is named Alice?
he knew an Alice Cooper way back when, almost 200 years ago, and thought she was quite beautiful. And then when he finally sees the 1970s Alice Cooper,
Ugliest
ugliest
woman
woman
I've
I've
ever
ever seen.
seen.
actually, I believe Alice Cooper was a musician as well, the one he was talking about. So
Yes.
isn't that where he the Cooper woman we know got his name though?
I thought it was because Chloe Grace Moretz's character was telling him that he has to be more modern, and she looked at a cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and Alice Cooper was on it.
Yeah.
Well, no, I meant Alice Cooper as right now. I think that's where he got his name from, not.
Oh, as far
But
as the story I heard was Alice Cooper just said, "No, we need a name for the band," and he said, "Why don't we just name it something like Alice Cooper?"
I mean, that's even funnier. Just like two just ran.
And it wasn't even supposed to be his name. His real name's Vincent Fernier, and people just started saying, "Yo, Alice," and he's like, "Oh, me."
But at this point, he's a figurehead, and we all know him as Alice.
Alice Cooper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is Vincent outside of makeup. When he is in makeup, he's Alice. So there's not really a different correlation.
Nope.
Like, come on, every time you think of a Johnny Depp movie, it goes in correlation with Tim Burton. So that's kind of like one of those things.
Yeah.
This is like collaboration number what, 10 with these guys? I mean, they've done movies.
Yeah, 8 or
back to
9.
Edward Scissorhands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the funniest thing about Alice Cooper is they didn't use any digital to make him look younger. All it was makeup and lighting.
No,
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't make him look younger or digitize his face in any way. Thank God.
People ragged on that though. They were like, "Oh man, Alice Cooper looks old," and I was like, "Well,
Alice Cooper is old."
but I mean, like, I don't think he really looked all that terrible considering, like, even in the 70s, he had a serious alcohol issue and he looked rough at times. There was an old interview with him where he even said, "Look at me. Would you buy a car from this man?"
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh,
And
man.
it kind of fit along with that. Like you said, he was already looking that rough in the 70s. Why would they try to change anything like that?
Yeah, and really, I mean, Alice is what's in his 70s now, and he looks great.
Yeah.
So this is 10 years ago, and even then, really, for his age, he actually looks really good.
When
I
I
mean,
buy a
like,
car from him, I'd be like, do you have a hearse? Because I'll buy that from you.
I mean, I could be totally biased because I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan. You know, like I've seen him live 10 times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I had Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, and Alice Cooper in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Please sign me up. Yes.
But yeah, dude. I mean, Alice Cooper was a nice touch. I even like watching the first time when they showed the picture on the Rolling Stone. I did not expect him to actually show up in the movie, but it was nice seeing that. And then Chloe Moretz singing the intro to the one song. But
Ballad of Dwight Fry.
yeah, I didn't really catch that they played the song when they're explaining the was it Victoria's background.
Mm-hmm.
They kept playing the song all the way over top of it, and when he starts screaming, "I gotta get out of here," she's actually breaking out the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that was a nice touch. And I'm like, I did not notice that until watching it this week. And I'm like, damn, that's actually really smart of them.
And which is actually like really clever because in the Ballad of Dwight Fry, that's the song where Alice Cooper usually comes out in his straitjacket and performs.
Yep.
But also I learned that that whole intro was actually a nod to the original series too, because her mom in the series was alluding that she killed their dad. So I'm wondering if they're trying to play that across in this as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the angle.
Because I don't think they even mentioned the dad. It's her by herself.
The problem with Dark Shadows that I noticed is they jammed so much into this movie. Like,
Yeah.
like one of my biggest peeves about this is, what's her name? Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Victoria Winters. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, what is she doing in this movie? She like appears at the beginning, goes away, comes back, and then at the very end, she appears again to like have this love arc. And I was like, you could like just have her the fuck out of it.
I mean,
I think it was also that goes hand in hand with the Ava Green story where he is in love with Josette. She's the incarnation of Josette in human form. And Ava Green starts getting that correlation, and with that jealousy and love arc with Ava Green's character, I think that's why she's in it. They could have put her in a little bit more to kind of keep her relevant, but that was the one thing I did notice. I'm like, she was there. They gave a backstory, but she wasn't in it as much as she could have been. So like, it's bad that was it the dad that pretty much takes the money and runs has more appearances than Victoria did, because I'm like, I know the movie's what 2 hours long. They could have probably put like maybe like 10 minutes of just like adding like different characters throughout just to make sure that they're relevant. I know like it can't be in every scene, but the relevancy of her kind of like died off right there when they're starting to rebuild everything too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think what I would have done was I would have had Victoria out of it, kept the Josette ghosts and that story in it, and had it like be haunting Barnabas, focus on the family more, and then save it for a sequel. Because I mean, what people don't understand is that they did set it up for a sequel,
they did.
but it looks like it's never going to happen, which we really don't need one
Yeah.
either.
I mean, it would be fun, but it wouldn't. It's not necessary.
No, I mean, this movie wasn't like, it wasn't great. You know, like I can say I sat here and I enjoyed it again. I enjoyed it in the theaters. I don't think it deserves the hate it gets. Like, is it really messy at times? Yeah, it does get a little like out there and over the top. But, I think like the part where the Chloe Grace Moretz admits that she's a werewolf, I was like,
I know that
it
was
just
one
it
thing
just
that just went.
that just felt so random again. I think they should have just focused on family, Barnabas, and um Ava Green.
Angelique.
Angelique, yeah.
Yeah.
and
I think
and
just
then that would have been it. Like build the business back, because what happens is Angelique now takes over what was their business. She takes over this fishing company or builds her own, and she's like the main face of like this section of Maine. Like the Collins family is kind of looked at as trash and has-beens. And
Angel
so
Bay, I think, is
so,
now the name of the town, Angel Bay.
so it's like adding insult to injury, but she's pissed off because Barnabas has escaped and he's back, and she still has a thing for him, obviously. I mean, they have that like weird sex scene where they're it's funny, but
I
it's
was
like
like
it's
kind of
weird.
confused with that one too, because I'm like, they're still fully clothed, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm like, at the end of it, they cut to her just like chilling out with a cigarette. I'm like, I don't even know what happened. All I know is they really destroyed that office.
Trying to capture the magic of that soap opera. They're always love triangles and they bang and they hate and they want to kill each other. So maybe it's just a homage throwing back to the way it was back in the 60s. But
And you know what? Nobody really talks about Johnny Depp's performance in this movie. I honestly, I think it's like one of his better ones.
he's clearly committed. I can definitely tell in this movie he's very committed to the dry humor as well as the persona, the physicality that is demanded for this role. And makeup looks good for him. Hair
Oh
looks
yeah.
good for him.
And his delivery of those lines that just come off like so like when he sees the TV and he's like, "What sorcery is this?" And then
Rips
he
the back of it
pulls
out.
it apart. Reveal yourself, demon woman, or something, whatever he
Tiny
says.
songstress.
And just like how he plays the stuff off so naturally, like when he's asked if he got stoned, and he's like, "They tried to stone me, it didn't work." Like he's just so nonchalant, but he's also like he's like very, I don't want to say cocky, but he's like very confident.
Yeah.
Like he still like comes out, and it's a different character for him. Like, yeah, it's weird. It's something like people like still like to rag and say, "Oh man, Johnny Depp's playing another weird character again. Like, why can't he just play a normal role?" And it's like, this is what actors do though. Sometimes playing these weird out there characters is some of the most fun that you can do being an actor.
For sure.
I mean, like he's wearing makeup and costumes and being in a gothic setting. I mean, like, yeah, be weird, have fun with it. I mean, like, how many Tom Hanks movies are memorable anymore because he's always in like some stupid drama? Like, who gives a shit?
I mean, a lot of people, yeah, like a lot of people say, like, for example, Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson was so great, but he's just being himself. Maybe except for The Shining, where he's batshit crazy. But to play a role like this requires a lot of dedication and it requires a lot of thought process. And I think he didn't half-ass it. He didn't zombie his way through it. He didn't sleepwalk through it. I thought, like, one performance that was him as you know, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I didn't care for his performance in that one. That was another Tim Burton creation. And there was the Alice in Wonderland. He was that to me felt like Tim Burton was kind of on autopilot for some of those movies, but for this one, it felt like he definitely was trying to. It definitely felt like he was trying to juggle a lot. It feels scatterbrained in terms of all the characters and the story. It should have been simpler, like you were saying, Colin. I think it's a combination of him trying to appease the fans of the soap opera and also trying to introduce new fans to the show and the movie. So I
Well,
think he had a full plate and maybe it just didn't come out as cleanly as he wanted it to.
I also think that with in regards to his performance, that he was playing not just a horror role, but he was also playing a comedy role as well. And maybe the comedy was how they thought the marketing was going to put people, you know, into the theater, because we had a plethora of vampire shit to the point where it was a joke. There was like so much vampire stuff, like, and they're changing so many rules where traditional vampires, it was like, steaks, garlic, and sunlight didn't really matter.
Yeah,
Crosses don't matter. Like it was Anne Rice vampires, and then you had Twilight, which
Twilight
was
vampires, I was gonna say.
like all over the damn place. And then that was like, are these even really vampires? So and then there was just like vampires here and there, and I was like, do
Are
we
we
really?
vamped out as an audience?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I think that was
maybe it
another
came
thing.
out.
The timing was just bad for it.
Yeah, I was like, maybe it came out at the wrong time. Like you said, it because at that moment, I'm like trying to think like, what is it? Twilight was at its like peak, and there was so much vampirism being thrown out there. It's like maybe it felt like he jumped in the bad bandwagon at that moment, but it was also like you said, wrong time maybe.
Yeah.
So that's why they probably marketed it as a funnier movie. It, like you said, does have like comedy in it,
Yeah.
but I did notice like what you were talking about with Johnny Depp being really confident. But if you take notice, a lot of Johnny Depp's roles, if he has heavy makeup and is really, I want to say not really awkward, but let's say outlandish, he has a lot more confident in those roles. Like he's almost hiding behind that mask. Where if he has nothing on his face, you get that Johnny Depp, where we're used to. Like even in Ichabod Crane, you got a little bit of outlandishness, but you still had Johnny Depp coming through. Barnabas, Mad Hatter, and I think there's another one that I just lost my brain. Like you got to see him a lot more confident, a lot more zany, a lot more just kind of being the character. Maybe that's what he should probably look more into.
Well, that's just it. Like as soon as you put on makeup and outlandish costumes like that, you're not going to be normal. Like I heard Tim Burton when he was talking about Jack Nicholson being the Joker. There was a line where they say, "I'll find my character when I find my wardrobe."
Yeah.
And like when
Yeah.
we were talking to Carl about putting the Batman suit on, it's like you feel a certain synergy that as soon as you get on, like put a costume on, you're like, I'm Batman.
You're that character. Yeah, costume makes all the difference.
It's no different than when we prepare for Halloween and we get all amped up for it.
Yeah, for sure.
You just feel that energy and you just like get into that character and you just want to like basically play and pretend, but it's like the costumes there, it feels legit. And when you see the makeup, you're just like, yeah, it just revs you up and energizes you, and you want to put out this like 110% performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was overlooked. Like I said, when I was doing research on this, like all I came across was really people just bashed on this movie. And at the end of the day, this movie is not terrible.
No.
It has its flaws. It's like maybe its rewatchability kind of lacks, and it's may not be for everybody, but I also think people could appreciate it a little more now. That like the vampire stuff's kind of taken back, and some Tim Burton and Johnny Depp stuff has cooled off, because there for a while it seemed like almost every year or every other year it was Tim Burton Johnny. Like John was saying, we got Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, then we got Corpse Bride, and then we got Alice in Wonderland,
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd, but I mean, I'm not saying that that was bad, but like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Alice in Wonderland seemed like kind of generic.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a uniqueness to those
Like
movies,
like I said, it felt like he was on autopilot for those two movies. It's like I'm just gonna do whatever the studio wants, and I'm just gonna make something, and hopefully something coherent comes out the other end.
Yeah, I mean, I can pick apart those movies too on a different date, but the point was, I think like at that time, people were just getting burned out from the Tim Burton, Johnny Depp stuff.
I think the sweet spot for this movie, if it were to come out, it should have beaten Twilight by like 3 or 4 years. Like if it was out in like 2003, 2004, people would have still had that fresh sense of the revival Dark Shadows in 91 still fresh in their mind. And maybe that could have sweetened the pot a little bit and not have people so soured out on vampires. So I think the Twilight craze kind of didn't help this movie at all. Like you were saying, Jeff, that people just feel like they're vamped out. Too many vampire movies, too many um, iterations of the famous movie monster. So I think it needed to come out in like 2003, 2004. And I think maybe it would have been received better. And there probably would have been a more focus on practicality. There's some CGI spots in this movie, especially Chloe Grace Moretz's werewolf transformation. I did not like.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't good. There's some great visuals in the beginning. The vampire attacks, the blood, the gore looks great. I think the set design, the production work is great. The house is awesome. I love the fact that it takes place in a coastal town, Maine. Maine's gorgeous, so there's a lot to like from a production designer standpoint. And it was really cool, like the different traps and escapes in the house. But I really did feel like the third act not tanked, but it took a bit of a nosedive for me. How this was trying to resolve the climax in the very end, I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah, it felt a little rushed. I mean, it felt like they tried to jam pack so much stuff in. Like, here's Josette's ghost. Here's
Yeah.
the kid seeing the mom. Here's Chloe Grace Moretz becoming a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I respect it. I think it's cool. They had like all the traditional classic like Universal monsters basically, or traditional classic Halloween monsters in the movie, but they should have spaced it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, just focus on Barnabas Collins and the family. Maybe have Josette's ghost, but be like, okay, like what's the deal with this? Like, can we have more explained in it? But then have that lead into a sequel and then bring in Victoria.
That
Feel
could
like
have worked.
there were so many things they could have done to keep it like more simple and not so messy. Like that was another problem. This movie feels like there are these characters here and there, and they should have just kept it more contained instead of branched out.
How can we fit a 1,000 plus soap opera into a 2 hour runtime?
Maybe
And
also they realized that they weren't going to get a sequel. Was one of those things, so they're going to try to jam pack as much as they can in 2 hour time span.
If they did, that was a bad idea.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking. Because like as you're speaking, like yeah, they left it open for one, but at the end of the day, I doubt that they were gonna make a sequel, even if it did well. Because why would you want to continue a story that has now been revived? That would be the third time. So I don't think it would have worked out anyway.
Mhm.
So maybe that's why they tried so hard to go like, all right, we're gonna add all this stuff into one movie to just in case we don't get that sequel, but appease new fans, old fans, try to like get every little nod in there just to make everyone happy type thing too.
If it was me, this is what I would have done. I actually would have taken a lot of the comedy out because I feel like another reason why this movie got bashed on, especially from fans, was because a lot of fans were faithful to the original horror aspect of the soap opera.
Mhm.
I would have kept it more horror and let it be like that. You know, if you want like I mean, this would be like a totally different movie though, but like considering that it is what we got stuck with, okay, that's what we got to talk about now. Like if I were to say like rewind it and do it all over again, like contain it, keep it more horror, have it be respectful for the fans. Maybe add some levity jokes here and there, just because that's sometimes it just helps break tension,
Yeah.
you know. But um, for the most part, that's what I would have done going back. Now, if I would go forward to what it is, I would have said, okay, this is how we're going to approach it, and it's going to have some more comedy elements. But because this was a soap opera, I would say, here's a script for 1, 2, and 3, and like pre-plan it so that you have a better idea on where to go and how to set it up. Because it seems like they just kind of like threw in a real quick, like, oh, Barnabas and Josette are back together again because Victoria died and Josette's reincarnated now. I'm still confused at that, but so
Soap operas.
that's another thing that's messy. And like, did Angelique really die? You know, she is a witch, so it's like I don't like she probably wouldn't even have to die in the first one if Josette or Victoria weren't even in it.
I
And
mean,
then you could like not even really set up Helena Bonham Carter's character yet. Maybe like have a little hint about it, but not go through the like, oh, let's kill her and make sure she doesn't become immortal, you know, and have the obvious like, oh, her eyes open up in the water and set it up for a sequel. So
I mean, when
I,
it comes to soap operas, do you think really anybody gives a damn about continuity, especially when it comes to something running that long?
but
That's
is
the thing
this
that I've learned.
but is this a soap opera?
Yes.
Uh, that's the other confusing thing. I'm like, so is this a horror movie? Is it comedy? Is it just a popcorn flick? Is it trying to be faithful to the soap opera? I was like, this is just all over the place.
Like I said, scatterbrained. It just feels like it should have. They should have hammered out a story, a more cohesive story, before they started filming this. I mean, I don't know how long it was in development. I have no idea.
Yeah, I
It
can't
takes
tell you.
about it take 1 to 2 years, maybe more, if that. So
How how long was each episode of the original series? Was it like a half hour?
30 minutes long, which
That if you think about that, then based upon the 2 hour long movie, that's probably why you had essentially four different segments kind of changing as it was going. So, like you said, it was kind of the continuity wasn't there. The ultimate uh, reveal of the werewolf, Hellbottom Carter's vampire. It might have been that concept, like, all right, so we're gonna do it as a whole movie, but try to do essentially 4 episodes of random stuff. So you got the intro of Barnabas, the awakening, the ghost, the vampire, the witch. So you've got 4 parts right there. That would be essentially 4 episodes then. Maybe that's why they
In
thought about
two
it as
hours.
this. Yeah.
mhm. If anybody's curious, listening out there, if you so feel compelled to binge the original soap opera Dark Shadows, straight through, it would take you approximately 25 days, 12 hours, and 30 minutes to watch every single episode. Do you have 25 days?
Yeah. I mean, we can do it right now.
Straight through, like nonstop, 25 days, 12 hours, and 30 minutes. Holy shit.
That's a lot, dude.
A month of your life gone. Ugh.
I guess another problem was a lot of fans of the original show were saying that Barnabas was also, you didn't really like root for him. Like originally he was somebody who caused a lot of drama constantly. Like
Yeah.
he was the root of any sort of supernatural element that was going to be coming in, and he actually killed his family members. It wasn't like he valued them specifically.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I respect them for doing something different and I don't have a problem with that. But I can see why fans who pretty much only had the original show, they did have a movie for it from the show. I think it's more of a side movie. Like it could have continuity, but then it couldn't. You know what I mean? Like you
Mhm.
almost like Power Rangers the movie.
Yeah.
Like it's this alternate timeline that just kind of goes and stops, and then you could go back to the show if you want. But yeah, then they had the revival, and then this movie, and the movie came off more as a comedy film than it did like the straight up horror.
I think
And
the
fans
marketing
probably like,
ruined it.
and it's not like Tim Burton. Like it's funny to me because it almost feels like you're taking something that was dark and serious and you're making the 60s Batman show. And so to me, I'm like, yeah, this is a little funny because when Tim Burton did Batman, it was we want to make it dark and serious and have Batman be serious again. And I'm like, so he did the opposite for this now?
Like, you don't want colorful outfits and automatopoeia and dance sequences in your Batman movie?
I was like, I was all confused because you know how he can take something. I mean, he and it wasn't bad. Like the comedy, like I said, isn't bad. It's not so all over in your face. I think it works, but at its root, it's not a horror movie. It's actually more family
There's
oriented.
a lot of dry humor. The one, actually, this is another quite funny scene. There was a transition where Chloe Grace Moretz is telling Barnabas, you need to be more in touch with the people of this day and age if you want to woo Victoria. How would I do that? And it just cuts to a hard cut of him sitting in a campfire circle with some hippies. They're getting high. It's like, I have really enjoyed my time with all of you, but it pains me. I have to kill you all. People are like, dude, I'm stoned out of my mind. Did you just say that? Oh fuck, he's gonna kill us all.
Well, now this also leads me to another question. Do you think this is also like a family film?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Okay. So
Um,
it goes from like a horror soap opera to a family film where like
'cause
you could like Jeff, would you let Thea watch this with you?
actually, yeah.
Okay.
It's because if you look at it, the violence isn't even on screen. So all the killing that he does
Most of it,
is,
yeah.
yeah, like even if they show him about to bite somebody, or if he does, it kind of like goes to his back, or it'll cut down. You'll see it like from below the knee.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's in your face violence. It's not a lot of swearing, and it's not really scary to the aspect that I think she would be afraid. It's one of those movies that, like I said, I enjoyed it because it's great for this time of year. The
Oh,
aesthetic's really
totally.
nice.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would definitely let Thea watch it.
See, I kind of felt that way myself. Like I think kids could watch it. Like are there moments that they might get scared? Yeah, sure. Maybe the sexualization could be a little too much, but even that's not really
There's
bad
really
either.
not all that much in there either. Yeah, I mean,
Like
it's
maybe when Eva
pain.
Green goes like with these and she shows her
Oh yeah,
cleavage,
she's got
that's
talent.
that's like probably one of the most like
I mean,
revealing sexualization moments, and
That's
even that's not terrible.
I did laugh at it when she rubs her ass on the piano. I was like,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. And she goes, I remember this.
It is PG-13, but I think it does a fairly decent job maintaining that edge of PG-13 R because there's no language. I mean, if there was intense language and nudity, hard R instantly. But I mean, it could be a thing of the times of if we make this movie PG-13, we get more butts in the seats and we get more of a return. That seemed to be the mentality for a lot of things back then. Like, I have no idea how intensely graphic the soap opera was, if it was. It was on television, but that was a different time period. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, did Tim Burton want to go for a hard R for this? I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't.
Has any of his movies got an R yet? Or was it just Sleepy
Sleepy
Hollow?
Hollow.
Hollow had definitely got an R. I mean,
Well, I'd say that one I could see 100% because of the violence, but
Ed Wood, I
Ed
think,
Wood, I
got
was gonna
an
say
R
Ed
rating.
Wood might be.
Yeah, that's really just language. Because you've got Martin Landau going, all right, let's shoot this fucker.
yeah.
Fuck you, you come down here.
I
Loaded with
mean,
F-bombs.
yeah, that'll do it. Because I'm like, even in PG-13, you use fuck
You get
once.
one. You get one. That's it.
Oh, Sweeney Todd. I'm pretty sure that was.
That was
Okay.
had to be horror. There was blood everywhere in that movie. And I actually thought that was like a good return for him. I wish they didn't cut some of the music out. There was some really good music that was omitted from that movie, but I still thought it was overall good. That's one thing I also do like about Dark Shadows is I think it's a great soundtrack. And there's a lot of good music from the 70s that they really capture, especially Alice Cooper, and then some of the background tracks during the montage sequences. They're kind of funny. Him trying to figure out ways how to sleep comfortably. He's like, I don't want to sleep like a human. I want to sleep like a vampire. So let me just crawl in this box and get rid of these peanuts. Or can you please have the two oldest caretakers in our mansion carry the casket out of the car and give it to me? I thought that was kind of funny. The two most feeble people in the entire help crew carry the casket into the house. So, but it's like what we've been saying is like the chord, the balance, the chord, the comedy, the horror. Is it trying to go for a balance of both, or is it trying to focus on one or the other?
Maybe we were looking at it the wrong way the whole time. Like it, maybe we were looking at it as it should have been a family film, like you brought up, Colin. Like, so that's probably why the horror and comedy kept getting pushed up and down to try to keep it nice and even. Because like you said, soap opera was on TV, so most people watch it, family, whatever. So maybe that's the two concepts we should probably look at it through those glasses rather than trying to base it upon a horror and comedy outlook. Because yes, it is it could be considered a horror movie. Yes, it could be considered a comedy, but at the end of the day, it's a family movie, and that's probably the line that they were working with. So it's like, all right, so we want everyone to enjoy this film. Even all your horror fans, all your comedy fans will enjoy it just as much. But that's probably why, like, we might have been hypercritical. That's why probably a lot of people have been hypercritical about it because they.
Oh, that's exactly why I think people were like overcritical on this movie. Like I said, most of the people that I knew that I listened to, one, I think either they were just sick and tired of the Tim Burton Johnny Depp combo and the weird and the weirdness that they do. Like they were just like done with like seeing their stuff, so they just wanted to rip on them.
Mm.
And the other thing was, if you were a fan of the show, you didn't get that, which I also understand, because it's like if you're a fan of the show and you want to see that come back, you don't want to see a family film version of it. I mean, you might as well just like take concepts of it and do your own thing. So I could definitely see why fans would be upset about that, and I'm with them on that. But as far as the product we got, though, I mean, the main theme is family, and you got like 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 Barnabas Collins sacrifices himself to make the family work again.
Mm-hmm.
Like help, there was that one scene where he finds out that the dad, it's not it's Michelle Pfeiffer's brother, played by Johnny Lee Miller.
Yep.
You find out he's more greedy and he's really not there to take care of his son, who claims to see that he's seeing his mother's ghost.
Yep.
He pretty much says, you have the option to stay with the family and help us be prosperous, or you can just take all these valuables and have your own small amount of wealth and just go off and do your own thing. But you got to decide now. And he decides to take the valuables and leave, and he leaves his family.
That could be the whole dramatic element from the soap opera, because they gotta, what is a soap opera without drama? Any soap opera, you have to have that corny drama thrown in there. So,
and again, it was another branch of like all these characters and do this, do that, do this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it works, but at the same time, it's messy.
Yeah, just like we said before, should have just stuck with one story element. If you had to omit a character or two, you could have easily done that, and not necessarily set up a sequel, but just let it happen organically. Don't make it contrived. Then probably would have generated more fan interest in the sequel if that had been the case. But Yeah, like I said, I think the family element really does come to play in the very end, even though I think it's the weakest part of the movie. Like in terms of climax, like the climactic clash between the family and Angelique, I just thought the whole werewolf thing was like, what the hell is this now?
Yeah.
Like that was why did that have to be the case? But it's a soap opera show full of ghosts, witches, and vampires. So we might as well just throw in a damn werewolf in there and with no explanation.
She didn't really even do anything special. It was just kind of like a distraction, and then she basically gets her ass kicked.
Yeah,
I
right.
was I was gonna say, like, even like the build up, like there was like subtle hints, like very subtle, that she was, but at the end of the day, she was just a moody teenager. And I think like one of the ones that I saw was the her sitting under the full moon painting. I'm like, that's not a hint. That's just like, oh, it's background because you see another guy painting it, like touching it up when they're redoing the house. And I'm
Mhm.
like, that's really not anything. So if they wanted to bring that in, they would have to, lay the groundwork to move that forward, not be like, oh, by the way, she's a fucking wolf. Good luck.
Yeah, like that would have been a good story arc for a sequel, not this like subtle and then in your face kind of moment.
Yeah.
Like like even if they would argue that like the trap door to the jewels and stuff, like all those wolves that
Mhm.
howl and then lead to the secret entrance.
That was a cool set piece.
It's cool, but I mean, like, does that have anything to do with it? I really don't think so.
You know, just a cool prop that the prop designer can make. It's like, hey, look what we can do.
Yeah.
Let's give it its 10 seconds of fame. But
I mean, isn't that house still standing? Because I feel like it never was torn down.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. I assume it was like they had the exterior shots and then they filmed all the interiors somewhere else in the studio. They just
Oh,
they
that
just
could
built
be.
they just built a couple elaborate sets in the studio and they said, we'll get some exterior shots here and then we'll do all the interior stuff in the studio.
Because
Which
I
that
mean,
would make the most sense. How often do you see a full complete location where they film outside and inside and no trickery, no bullshit? It's like, no, what's inside of this house is really also the outside of the house. You don't see that very often nowadays. It's like
Oh, yeah.
we can make studios. We can just make it look like the inside.
Well, look at Ghostbusters. The firehouse is in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Like the interior and the outside of the building's actually in New York.
exactly. Exactly.
People don't realize that.
I'll say, wasn't the Munsters house in Zombies movie both interior and exterior because of being in
Probably,
Budapest?
probably, yeah.
Because I remember them building that street, but I don't know if they actually built the. Just like I know they mainly use the main floor in the movie, so it makes that would be an easy one to do, but not like every single room. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not common when they actually build the outside and use the inside.
Yeah. It's usually just like in like theater terms, they call it a flat.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's more than a flat, but it's kind of like what it is. It's just like, here's something that we just put together to make it look like here's a prop on the outside.
Or a matte painting. I know that's a common thing that people use. One that's really impressive, I know is getting off topic, but like John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, that church in the middle of an open field is not a matte painting, it's real. There's just a real Greek Orthodox church in the middle of nowhere. And they actually use, I think, some of the interiors and exteriors. I'm like, that's impressive. So if you can find a location and pull that off, you'll save some money. But you're not going to save money. It's like, well, we need this to match the interior. We like the exterior, but the interior does not match. It's too modern. So we gotta spend a few extra bucks building some sets on the studio somewhere. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
Should we find that church and do In the Mouth of Madness and inside it?
Yes, please.
I feel like that'd be a
While
fun
writing
episode.
some creepy books and finding a door to hell. And the German guy from Das Boot is right there.
Oh my god.
He has a name. I can't pronounce his name. It's Jorgen something. I'm sorry I butchered your name.
Just call him George.
Yeah, there you go.
But now, do you guys have anything else you would like to talk about with this movie, or do you want to do your favorite scenes?
I pretty much said what I have to say. I mean, overall, I enjoy Dark Shadows. I still got a kick out of it. We're rewatching it again for the episode.
Mhm.
I noticed things are a little all over the place. Like, I like to be one of those people who don't watch a movie and be so critical and analytical when I first watch it. I just like to sit down and just let my mind go. You know, like I know some people they can't turn that off and right away they got to nitpick and just be all like I said, critical about everything and every little thing. But
Mhm.
do I regret going to the theater for it? No. But could I have waited? Yeah. You know, it's not one of those it's not one of those movies that you really had to rush to go see, or it's not something that you have to own in your collection. But like Jeff was saying, I think it's a good movie for this time of year. It's not really scary. Um, but it can be like family oriented, and it has like like subtle hints of horror, and it has some subtle hints of sexuality. So it has like stuff that's adults geared for, and it can be watchable for kids too.
Yeah. Also, I just discovered a couple days ago, we tragically also lost Laura Parker, who played the original Angelique in Dark Shadows. She recently
Oh,
passed away. So it always seems like something happens right before or right after we do an episode on a topic of a movie or a show. But
well,
maybe some,
Jonathan Freed, who played the original Barnabas Collins, had a cameo in this Dark Shadows movie.
he did. Yes, he did.
And he comes in with a group of people when they're having the ball at the uh, Collins mansion. I think it's just called Collinswood.
Collins Wood. Yes.
And
Actually, that's a lot of people returning from, might not be the original cast, might be the revival, but that whole group is from either the revival or the original.
oh,
Um,
okay.
Nice.
yeah.
I knew Jonathan Freed for sure, and then he passed away. I think even before the movie came out.
Oh,
I
that's
think he passed
unfortunate.
away.
Hmm.
And then I think this was Christopher Lee's last movie
I think it
too.
was his last movie too. Yeah,
I
he
don't
was definitely up there in age.
I don't remember if he passed away before it came out or not, but I
Let's
remember
find out.
I remember Jeff and I having conversations where we said you could tell that he wasn't doing good.
Yeah. I mean,
And
even
he
his
he
role was just chilling out in that chair, and you could tell that,
yeah, like
2015, that's when he passed away at the age of 93.
yeah.
who
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Even with
remember
400 films, yeah.
we said, he just didn't look good. Like yeah, like I think the hat and they probably covered him with makeup. It looked like he had more facial hair.
Mhm.
Just yeah. And then like we said, he was just sitting in a chair. So
He just
he
had that one scene. So
yeah. Which was sad because it was kind of like that was the last of the trio, Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, and Christopher Lee.
I know he outlasted his friends by decades, it seems. Literal decades. Yeah, I think Peter Cushing was the first to go, and then it was
Yeah.
Vincent Price, and then what feels like 20 years later, then we lost Christopher Lee.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
happy Tim Burton though was able to get him in movies. I heard in interviews he would always try to do like pitch and say like, "Hey, let's get Christopher Lee in for this," and the studio executives would say, "Isn't he dead?"
Oh my God, they're gonna give him the Ed Wood treatment.
Yeah.
Lugosi?
And
Yes,
and you know
Lugosi. Is he
and
dead?
you and you know what's funny is people think Tim Burton is just this like laid back, easygoing, like, oh well, but he can get pretty fiery. I've heard him in interviews like dropping F bombs and stuff and be like, these fucking guys, they're in charge.
You watch the movies that make us, he goes off the rails when it came to the development of The Nightmare Before Christmas, even though he didn't direct it. There were some
Hmm.
ideas that were proposed in terms of changes for the ending and some structure plot elements, and he fucking went off the rails. He had like his own entourage, and even they were thinking, Jesus, this guy's he's getting pissed.
Well, even in our interview with Carl, he said that, Tim was actually, for a young guy, he was a strong leader. Like, he dealt with a lot of stuff and he knew how to handle all the heaviness that weighed upon him. And so, to Tim Burton's credit, he like learned to really man up at a young age and to deal with the pressures of Hollywood that he did. It's probably what built him up. Like, even Kevin Smith had that joke where he wanted to sue him for Planet of the Apes because of the Ape Lincoln thing. Because it was in like a Jay and Silent Bob comic book, and I don't think he was serious, but they kind of like made like a publicity joke, like, "Oh, we're gonna sue Tim Burton," and Tim Burton like lashed out at it and was basically said Kevin Smith can go fuck himself.
I didn't see that, but
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln scene, that was actually, I think, faithful to the original novel. I think that was the idea. So he wanted to pay tribute to that, but that's another story.
Now, he didn't actually say that, but I'm just saying that like he wasn't afraid to like give an opinion.
In his mind, he probably said it a couple times.
Right.
I probably didn't even know who the fuck Kevin Smith was to begin with.
Which is screwed up because Kevin Smith wrote the original treatment for Death of Superman.
Yeah.
Or Superman Lives.
Superman Lives. Yes. It's right. Yeah. They were going to work together in this project that fell before it even happened.
Listen, I know this is a little off topic, but that was a nice little touch they put in Flashpoint. I have to admit that.
I enjoyed that.
Nicholas Cage fighting the giant spider.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. I enjoyed that thoroughly.
I got a good chuckle out of that.
It was, it was for the fans, and fans got it. I got it. I had a big smile on my face. I was like, hell yeah.
Dude, I laughed out loud because I'm like, are you fucking serious?
That's exactly what I said. I was like, really? But I thought it was cool. Like, I thought having Christopher Reeve and was it Helen Slater?
Yeah.
Together,
I'm not gonna lie, I did tear up for that for a little bit because I'm like, it was a nice touch too. Like, there's a lot of nice touches they added in that whole like universes melting together scene.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I
totally
know
off topic, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know you wanted to hate that movie, and I understand why. But
yeah, I couldn't hate it because it was good, and I wanted to hate it because of all the bullshit behind it.
Yeah,
right,
and it's totally understandable. I understand that completely.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a whole other episode.
I know.
About development hell, that's a 7 to 8 year window of hell.
Well, never mind.
2015, and you finally get it in 2023.
Well, never mind. Like
the outside bullshit, yeah.
Outside bullshit and politics played a part in that, which was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Just let a movie be a movie.
The fans, like, I think that's another reason why, like, it definitely it feels like Tim Burton made this movie because he wanted to make it for so long, because he wanted to create fan service. And, hey, you're fans, I want to service you. So yes, it's going to come off a little scatterbrained with all these characters and all these plot inconsistencies, but we want to service the fans. So we go with what we got. We want something cohesive, and we definitely would like more world building, but then again, we're not sure if we're going to get another shot at this. I mean, the movie only made like $245 million worldwide. It made more than its budget, but it didn't earn enough for a sequel.
So what you're saying is it's the most Tim Burton movie that Tim Burton made because he was trying to make it for the fans. So like that's why we got the extra elements of like awkward, the extra elements of color, the extra elements of like costume design. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. He's already accomplished so much in his career. It's like,
that's
oh yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, that's probably why he ended up doing this, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Alice in Wonderland, almost within a few short years, because like those movies are, yes, Tim Burton movies, but they're too Tim Burton for Tim Burton, if you catch my drift, because like it's really elaborate costumes, really elaborate colors, really
they're forgettable.
Designs. Yeah.
They really are forgettable.
I could pull away from Alice in Wonderland was the Cheshire Cat. because that was a different take of a very popular character.
It was
But
very CGI too, and that's not like Tim Burton.
no.
No.
Where with this one, they did use some practical effects, like mainly with Barnabas. But like you said, the CGI werewolf was really kind of something they could have just even added a little bit of makeup on her face to kind of just go, all right, let's do both a little bit of makeup and CGI. Just give us that little bit of a practical effect to base everything on.
Yeah, don't use CGI as a crutch. Use it as just a filler. Yeah, but some studios go overboard with that shit.
I would be really curious to know the backstory behind the making of this movie because there really isn't much. And I feel like after years, we haven't heard, to Tim Burton's credit or the cast and crew. Usually it's so easy to say, well, studios got involved and it's not what we wanted. And it's like, okay, like you hear that with the Weinsteins and it turns out to be true. Blair Witch 2 was like that as well.
The Crow City of Angels.
But this movie, I wonder if something was planned and then they said, well, let's try this and try that.
I feel like in the day and age that we are, we're getting a lot of documentaries based upon movies that could have been what was behind the movies. I mean, even recently we've got Living with Chucky, that Robert Englund one, which really dealt with his career span. I know there's actually a Clue one that just came out as well. So this probably could use that treatment as in its process, because like I think Tim Burton alone probably would give us a lot of insight, even with as bad as this can sound, even with Johnny Depp's issues and stuff going on, maybe there was something that was more in play that none of us actually saw. So maybe that's like one of those things, like, yes, this movie is popular because of it being a soap opera, but it movie by itself could have probably done a lot different things. And I'd love to hear it from both Tim Burton's mouth, the writer's mouth, Johnny Depp's mouth. It would be a nice touch just to see like that. Hell, even a movies that made us would have been nice.
Yeah, like give us something with a little more backdrop, because
a couple of years down the road.
I feel like it's one of those movies though that you'd really have to like plug and preach and convince people that, kind of like what we're doing now, that this movie is actually better than what you give it credit for, or was bashed on when it first came out. But like some things are warranted. They really are with the movie, and I get that. Like my biggest thing is, if I were a fan of Dark Shadows, the original series, I wouldn't want to see this amalgamation of this character story, this, that, all over the place, and more of a comedy. I'd want it to be a gritty, hard horror movie. So I understand that. But I guess only time will tell if like we actually hear more about what will happen. Like maybe if Tim Burton were to ever do a podcast and somebody were to ask him, like, how do you feel about Dark Shadows, or what can you tell us that really happened behind the scenes with that? Then
everybody's got a podcast, so why not?
I mean, if Tim Burton listens to this, we would love to.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, come on our show.
For sure.
Hey, remember Carl?
But
I mean,
I would say definitely the imagery alone in this movie is what I feel makes it stand above the other two that I mentioned. Like I said, the backdrop being in Maine, the aesthetic of being a Halloween movie rather than a just typical Tim Burton movie actually helps it out. Because like I said, I'm just thinking of the imagery alone. Like think of like the backdrops he's using. Think about even the castle itself. It was a nice touch. The fact that Johnny Depp played the whole movie with those extended fingers actually was well. Like it didn't seem like they were awkward. It didn't seem like they set him back either. So you're adding an extra inch or two on the tip of his fingers, and it looked like they were already part of his hand. He did well with that. And I would say like the scene that actually got me was, like I said, when they're playing that Ballad of Dwight Fry over top of the girl escaping the asylum was probably like one of my favorite scenes. I'm starting to see that a trend with me. Like some sort of Alice Cooper song playing over top of something is probably becoming my. Come on, think of Daniel Harris's Death and Rob Zombie's Halloween. This one now, it's like, all right, I'm starting to see a trend myself.
Mhm.
But it's like you said, the imagery based upon the music that's playing, it's actually playing into what's going on, which is catching my attention. Because I feel like a soundtrack can make or break a movie as well. If you're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
force something into it, it's gonna make it bad. If it's playing over top of something and it's kind of not the, let's say it's the background, not the foreground of the situation, it actually will add to like a scene. And that's what I think I start looking at more. I'm looking at what makeup is used and it kind of catches my eye, and then actually the music itself. Because I listen to a lot of music and it kind of like catches my attention on where it's playing. So it's like that's one thing I was taking away from it. So that as what is going on plays to what they're playing with. So that's actually a pretty nice touch there. I feel like I got off the topic again.
No, it's still part of the movie.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm talking about your favorite scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even as the movie as a whole, like you said, every one of us has bashed on it a little bit, but I feel like I more enjoyed it now than I did back in 2012. Because I think then, like you said, we were hypercritical about everything. We did enjoy it. We do enjoy Tim Burton as a director, writer, and he's a really good showman. But I think as time went on, he lost his way, and now I'm enjoying it just because it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was kind of funny. I think it's one of the first times I think I've actually defended a movie against you two. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's rare because I'm the one that.
Well, like I said, I didn't hate this movie. And I'm the kind of guy who I just go into a movie, sit down, and I don't really like get analytical and critical about it right away. Sometimes you just know that a movie's not good. Like when I left Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I was like, I didn't like this. Or Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. You just left those movies going, wow, I did not have fun at all. I'm glad it's over with.
Another topic
but
entirely.
but I didn't feel that way when I left the theater for Dark Shadows the first time. I haven't. This wasn't a movie that I've gone back and rewatched a whole lot, but like Jeff said, I think it's a really good Halloween movie. Um, I, we talked about how it can be for families, and it's pretty well rounded overall. As far as like the structure of it, it is a little bit messy, and I do feel for fans that if they wanted something that was more grounded into the original Dark Shadows soap opera and it was going to be more horror, they didn't get that, and I would feel gypped out too.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm a Batman fan, and when we got Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, it took us how long until 2005 came around to get Batman Begins, and it was like, oh my god, give me a new one.
So what you're telling me is Batman and Robin isn't a good movie? Like Arnold and Uma Thurman didn't carry that whole thing.
Listen, if you want an episode on it,
You got how about next 2 weeks?
we'll make it a Christmas movie.
Jeff,
Everybody
December.
choose
Jeff, what killed the dinosaurs?
the Ice Age.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't the Ice Age. It was the Ice Age.
I will say this though. Uma Thurman was sexy as hell in that movie.
Oh my gosh.
It's one rash I wouldn't mind getting.
Oh my gosh.
We're
We're definitely saving this for another time. I'm gonna let you
Oh,
pack that one away, Colin, till later.
stuff that one in your pocket and hold it out. Bring it out another maybe a couple months or so. When we decide to tackle that one. Yeah, favorite scene. I know we talked about it, but it's the Alice Cooper sequence. I think that's the most fun, the most vibrant and colorful, and also, like I said, got the biggest laugh out of me when he looks at Alice Cooper through the binoculars, just the ugliest woman I've ever seen. He's even trying to, and then he's trying to hypnotize David Collins. Go watch the Cooper woman. Got a good laugh out of me too. I just thought like it was a really nice, fun set piece coming together. And because I've seen Alice Cooper a number of times, not many as you, Colin. I've only seen him like maybe 3 times.
Dude, you gotta bump them numbers up, bro.
Yeah,
I actually finally passed Colin not that long ago.
But John, you saw him 3 times. Those are rookie numbers, man. Pump that shit up.
those are rookie numbers.
Yeah, I think I'm at 13 right now. That includes Hollywood Vampires.
Jesus.
Yeah, I haven't
Depp
seen
is also
Vampires.
That's the one he's part of too, Johnny Depp, right?
Yeah.
I
get this. I have this feeling. I thought that was the beginning of their relationship. Was this movie?
Could have been.
It might have. I think that was before they did. I think it was before they did the actual band stuff. So maybe they met on set here, or maybe they knew each other from before. Because I know Johnny was friends with Marilyn Manson.
Okay.
Because I know Christopher Lee was still alive when they did the first album because he does the intro.
Oh, okay.
He had his own metal band. I love that. Christopher Lee had his own metal band.
Well, I think Alice Cooper also knew Christopher Lee too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Christopher Lee has like an amazing voice, like just talking voice in general. So it's very iconic. And
he was the original vampire. He wasn't Bela Lugosi old, but he was like he was the Hammer horror Dracula.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was a nice touch that they threw him in here, even with him being up there at age. So like the whole him being one of the original Draculas, or I should say iconic Draculas.
Yeah.
It was a nice touch, like having him in a vampire movie. So
yeah. I think a favorite scene for me, I always think of the when he comes out of the casket and does the Metastophocles and he sees the McDonald's arch. That always just got me, and I always look forward to it because I think it's just a good laugh, you know.
Oh yeah.
Obviously the Alice Cooper scene, like you said, John and Jeff, you know, like I think there's like a soft spot that we all have for Alice Cooper in general because we just love Alice Cooper because he's awesome. I mean, anybody who's never seen Alice Cooper's show, what are you doing?
You know, I wish we kind of got a little cameo for Joseph Gordon-Levitt for this movie because he was David Collins in the revival in '91. I kind of wish we got maybe him thrown in there too. It's like, oh, that's a nice little. He was David Collins in the revival. Isn't that nice?
One thing I will say too that I really liked about this movie that I think gets overlooked is obviously I talked about Johnny Depp's performance, but I also really liked Michelle Pfeiffer's performance and Ava Green's. I thought Ava was like
those three.
She was like really on point with fun, scary, sexy, and Michelle Pfeiffer just felt like she had a comeback role that, you know, I was like, it was just really good to see her in there. And Tim Burton had nothing but high praise for her. Even then, he said, when I worked with her on Batman Returns, she was nothing but amazing and professional. And he said to work with her again was like, he just had a joy with it. And Michelle Pfeiffer always brings it anyway. So
for sure.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I mean, when she's on screen, her presence is known. Like she stands out 100%. Even with Johnny Depp being there, I felt like she stood out more than he did.
Hell, there was that movie that she was in called The Witches of Eastwick, where she was like third tier because it was Cher, Susan Sarandon, and Michelle Pfeiffer. But I just was like, Michelle Pfeiffer she just has that like charisma, like what do they call it? Like being photogenic or something, you know, she just has that it factor.
It factor.
You know, it's like not everybody has that, but Michelle Pfeiffer does. So I think that there are definitely like pros to the movie, and I don't think it's a terrible film at all. I think it got shit on too much, like we said, because of the timing of everything, maybe too much Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, and vampires. um, it not following Dark Shadow criteria, but at the end of the day, it was still a decent movie overall. And I suggest people watch it.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a movie that's I actually have since the first time I saw this movie was not in theaters. I didn't see it until I think 2020, like during the pandemic is when I actually first started watching it. I think I went through like a Tim Burton phase where I was just binging a bunch of movies I hadn't seen of his. This was one of them. And I thought, yeah, there are obvious flaws. Seth Graham-Smith wrote the script, and he's known for Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I thought it was inconsistent because I thought like some of the comedy really worked and some of it didn't, and I thought the dramatic heft was um, well, could have been better. Let's just say they were charged with trying to, like I said, scatterbrain. There was so much that was thrown into this movie. It has great production design. My three favorite performances are Johnny Depp, Ava Green, and Michelle Pfeiffer. They're the three that definitely stand out the most. But yeah, I do think it would have benefited from a 2003, 2004 release as opposed to 2012. Get ahead of that Twilight craze. People were not just getting sick of the relationship between Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, but also Helena Bonham Carter. He was married to her for 13 years. She was always in his films. And then the running joke was, now that they're separated, who gets custody of Johnny Depp? I thought was a really funny joke that was thrown in there. And then there were, Tim Burton has this knack of dating women that he puts in his movies, like it was Ed Wood and it was Helen Bonham Carter and it was Eva Green. There was the rumor that they were dating. Oh, she's the next one. She's in all of his movies now. I guess they're in a relationship together.
But that also goes back to what we were saying in our previous episode about how you build a relationship with actors.
You do.
Like John, that like when you know other actors that you can like work with and that can bring it and are going to be solid and reliable, you don't always just want to go looking for the next thing, because sometimes when you're looking, you don't find exactly what you're looking for, and it could train wreck everything. That's why like they stick to what they do. And
yeah,
I think it also helps with like guys like Scorsese, Tarantino, Tim Burton. Like they have these relationships that are like inside and outside of filming.
And that's not a problem at all. Like they know.
No, but people act like it is. They, like they get sick and tired of it. And it's like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, if you know these actors are capable of what they're doing, and you know that this role benefits them, or at least can expand their horizons and find different things that they can bring to the table, why would you want to look for somebody else and start the whole process all over again?
And it would be different.
Capable.
And it would be different if somebody said like, hey, I worked with this person on this movie, bring them on here because I worked together with them.
Mm-hmm.
And, and sometimes they bring out the best in them too. Be like, hey, if there's a problem, like I can also work with them, and then we'll do what we got to do to bring the best out. So sometimes it's not always on the director. I just want to bring that up because so many people bash on that. Like, oh, why did these directors go with this? Like, I feel like when it was Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, it became a joke. But when it's Scorsese and DiCaprio, it's genius.
Look at the rapport that those guys created over the years. Well, that's it's just we understand that. We as like filmmakers and talking about films, we understand that they have a great relationship, but the average moviegoer just wants to go on X and Twitter and make a funny meme about it because they think they'll get more clicks and think, hey, look at this tired rapport. Look at this tired relationship that we see over and over again. Let's make a joke about it. I don't think you're seeing the big picture. I don't think you're actually seeing the relationship that's cultivated through decades of sacrifice, hard work, and a lot of great memories.
I mean, right. Look at Ben Affleck and Kevin Smith, or Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith. Those three have done how many movies together?
Yeah.
And even Kevin Smith makes fun of it. It's a relationship that, like you said, builds up. And as much as it was funny, the fact that everyone did make fun of the Johnny Depp and Tim Burton thing, but it is true. Like it is one of those things like we talked about last time. Like it's a relationship we all have. We're comfortable. We know what you're capable of. they will take care of each other.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in sports too, or a band. You pick those musicians and you have these players and you build that relationship, you build that camaraderie.
Yeah.
And that's when magic
chemistry with them.
And that's when magic happens. I just feel like when like the Tim Burton Johnny Depp stuff, it just seemed like it was a target, and it was like, oh, can you guys just like move on and not work with each other? And it's like, why?
Because the average moviegoer doesn't understand it. They just think it's a joke. But it's, to us, we don't see it as a joke. We just see it as a long-lasting built relationship and a great foundation that started however many years it was, and look where it is now. Look how it's grown. Look at the hits we've had, the losses we've suffered, and because not everything is going to be perfect, but we're still together. Yeah, we've had our hits, we've had our misses, but we're still together, and we're still making projects. We're still making movies.
Hey, Ed Wood flopped. Now it's a classic.
It did flop. Now people regard it as his best work ever.
Ed Wood's fucking great.
Yeah, it is.
I love Ed Wood. That is the movie that I actually didn't see until 2020. And that was when I saw it the first time, like, I'm buying this shit. This might actually be one of the most rewatchable films I've ever seen.
Oh, hell yeah. It's so funny because it's not like a Tim Burton film, but when you find out it is, you're like, damn, dude, this movie's awesome.
It makes so much sense for it being a Tim Burton film.
But it also shows like how much he loved original original sci-fi movies for that one. I mean, it was an ability. It was the way of opening the door to new fans to Plan 9 from Outer Space. But like Ed Wood in general just is a fun guy. And like the movies that he made were never perfect, but they were just fun watches. Yeah. If you go back now and rewatch Plan 9 from Outer Space, I'm sorry, I can't even keep a straight face while saying that because the movie is so awful. It's great because like you could tell that yes, he loved that movie, he loved making that movie, but the fact that it was done on the cheaper side, you definitely could tell with it. But it was funny that Tim Burton took that concept and almost like made Ed Wood a love letter to that whole process.
Right. And the way Johnny played Ed Wood is like this lovable character. It was like, I mean, I don't even know if the real Ed Wood was like that at all, but
they had to romanticize that character a bit. They had to, because I know the real Ed Wood was notoriously difficult to work with.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Romanticize him to a degree.
It's usually how it works. Like the real George Young in Blow, like Johnny made him a likable character, but really the real George Young was a piece of shit.
Real William Wallace was a savage. Like he was not. They had to romanticize him for Braveheart, but he in real life was a barbarian.
Well, look at the times though.
Times, but yes, people didn't understand that in '95.
All right, you guys have anything else to add to our Dark Shadows conversation? I feel like we covered a lot.
We did.
Yeah. So general consensus, I gave mine.
Yeah, I would say honestly, if you've never seen it, give it a watch. Perfect time to watch it now. Other than that, just don't go into it hypercritical. Just enjoy the moment.
Yeah,
you're gonna enjoy the movie a hell of a lot more. And if you don't know who Alice Cooper is, that's your fucking loss.
Right.
There's 50 albums out there. Just choose one.
Look up his tours and just go see him. It's worth it.
Right. Yeah, I recommend checking this movie out. I do. It may not be your cup of tea, but check it out. It's definitely a cut above his other works that were in that time zone, in that time span. If you're curious about the other shows, you can binge the revival in probably about 3 hours. It's all on YouTube. And there's a 1970s Dark Shadows movie called House of Dark Shadows. That's not 1,230 episodes. That's about an hour and a half long. So if you want to watch that, by all means, go for it. It has all the original cast members. If you don't want to sit through 25 days, 12 hours, and 30 minutes.
So I like this conversation. I like that we were able to say that we enjoyed this movie overall, but it is very flawed. It's nothing that you would like rush out to have and add to your collection, but it's worth a watch. And it's definitely a seasonal movie. Maybe not something that you can watch year round, but you may like it, you may not. It got bashed on when it came out right away, but at the same time, I think it has kind of like mellowed out a little bit to the point where I wouldn't say it's a cult classic, but I'd say it has value with the Halloween season.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So with that being said, we shall sign off. This is Colin Peters.
John Bruschetter.
And Jeff Manfred.
Thank you all once again for listening. Stay safe. Stay crazy.
Please, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah.